morning. Today we're going to be tying up a pattern that's a berry Clarke tie. And I actually haven't tried it, but it looks like it would be pretty effective here in my waters. I'm using a size 14 TroutFly hook, a sheer 14-aught thread in brown. We'll go ahead and lay ourselves down a nice thread base. I've waxed my thread so everything's sticking to my fingers. But he calls this one the honey pot, and so you want to be, where I come from, it's very easy to slip and say honey bucket instead. And a honey bucket, for those of you who know what that is, it's just a outside outhouse. I don't think that that's the intent. This one's called the honey pot. Kind of, I would imagine, like the honey pot from Winnie the Pooh, maybe, from what I remember when I was a kid 150,000 years ago. We're going to start out with just some Coq de Leon. I've just got a feather here that I've been pulling off of. It's just nice, kind of brown, white, black, and mottled. And we're going to use that for the tail. For the measurement, we want that to be about the length of the shank of the hook. So I'm going to measure that out. Then I'm going to go ahead and pinch the material and take it back to the back end of my hook. And then I'm just going to take a wrap or two over the top of it just to make sure that I've got it in place and check on the length. That's looking all right to me. I'm going to go ahead and actually move my thread forward with that Coq de Leon still in place. This fly will have a little bit of a taper to it, and by tying that Coq here all the way up near the eye, it just helps us with the needed bulk in order to have this taper from thin to thick, from the back of the fly to the front of the fly. I'm just going to take my thread back. I'll continually kind of spin my thread counterclockwise. There are a couple of reasons for doing that. One is when you're tying and you want your thread to be jumping back towards your fingers. That's the trick right there, is to spin your thread counterclockwise or anti-clockwise, as I think they say across the pond. The other reason is it flattens that thread out a little bit, so it just helps you make a nice, cleaner kind of a profile. So our body on the fly is going to be one strand of moose mane and one strand of, in this case I'm using some black elk hair because it was just black, more black than the moose mane that I had. And the white moose mane can be a little bit hard to find, but I was able to find a few strands of it in my bag of animal fur, animal hair. So we're just going to tie these two in back where we want the abdomen on the fly to start. Probably right about there. Then we're just going to come right back up. And similar to the Coq de Leon, I'm going to keep those two fibers in place just to help us with that taper. Once I get up to about that point, leaving myself at least an eye length to an eye length and a half behind the eye of the hook, I'm going to go ahead and cut the butt ends of those off. Once you've got those two fibers tied in, I'm going to hold them up. A couple of things here. Try to avoid the hook point because it will cut right through those two. The other is they'll have a tendency to want to split out on you, so you want to take a little bit of time as you wrap these up. If you put too much pressure on them trying to keep them together, they will break. Moose is a little bit more durable than maybe a deer hair or elk hair, but it really takes hardly anything at all for you to break those off, and then you just end up tying them back in again. And the biggest ingredient for me anyway on this pattern is the white moose hair there. Because we have the brown underbody, you can see kind of what we're going after here, which is that nice kind of alternating dark and light pattern, almost quill body here. And since, like I said, the thread is brown, even if you miss a little bit with your blacker for the brown will show through, and you'll still end up with that nice alternating pattern of dark to light. For the soft hackle, I'm just going to turn to a partridge skin, and I'll take a feather from up here near the neck. It's a feather that looks something like that. What I'll do is I'll kind of take a look and make sure I don't have any kind of broken off edges on the top. It just makes for a cleaner soft hackle. And once I've got that, I'm just going to hold those in my fingers. And I'm going to find where those fibers start going from just fluff to more solid, stiff fibers. And the stiff fibers are the ones that we're going to want. So we're going to end up with something that looks about like that. When I'm working with a soft hackle like this, what I like to do is just put the very tip in the hackle plier like this to hold that tip in place while I stroke the rest of the fibers backwards. So then when I release from my hackle plier, I've got just this nice little triangle point that I'm going to cut most of that off. That's going to be our tie-in point, and by kind of leaving that little bit of a triangle in place, it just will help keep this hackle from slipping and sliding on you as you're trying to tie on or wrap your hackle up. I'm just going to take my thread and bring it up to the eye there. I'm grabbing a pair of hackle pliers, and I want to get the stem right in the center. And I like this one that's kind of got a hinge to it. Go ahead and stroke those fibers backwards. We'll just take one touching wrap in front of the next. Every time I get back up to the top, work on stroking those fibers back again. And I'm going to end this up upside down. You never know where you're going to want to stop, and that's right where I want to stop. I'm going to sneak right back in here upside down, and we're going to clip off the balance of that stem. From here, it's just going to be a matter of whip finishing, so we'll grab our whip finishing tool, take most of your wraps moving back towards that hackle, so you have it less diameter up behind the eye of the hook, and it gets thicker as it moves back towards that hackle. Just like so. And then I'll just grab my thread cutter. And there you have it. Pretty straightforward fly. The honey pot. Try not to call it the honey bucket. The honey pot. It's a really nice looking fly. Not overly challenging to tie, however. You do want to be careful with the moose mane fibers as you're tying them up. Again, if you hit the tip of your hook, it'll cut right through it, and those fibers will have a tendency to want to stand out. That's why I like using the rotary feature. But throw yourself a hook in the vise and give this one a shot.